So what's your background?
So my background wasn't actually cybersecurity in any way, shape or form. I fell into cybersecurity purely by accident. I used to be very much a people-based person that had a career that was marketing and events-based. And then one day I found myself turning my hand to project management because of my organization ability to implement policies and things like that. And then some time ago, back in 2004, 2005, the head of the company turned around to me and said, have you ever heard of information security? And I was like, no. And they plonked me, a very people-based person, into an IT team of 13 techies.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my goodness, these people don't even speak the same language as me. It's foreign. I felt a little bit, I suppose, vulnerable and a little bit more sort of, they had a knowledge that I didn't. So I kind of put them on this pedestal of these are amazing brains that I feel a little bit intimidated by. But their biggest problem at the time was trying to educate the business community and educate individuals on what cybersecurity was. And that's kind of, okay, that's my bag. I can talk to people. So I used to sit down with them, get them to strip their language of any acronyms and give it to me in a way that could simplify it, that I could understand. And I would then translate it. So I acted as a translator between the IT teams and the end users.
Amazing.
And then that's kind of where the original product and service came from.
Right, so it's like that sort of middle ground between fluency in sort of information security and computer skills versus like not having an idea.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
and I think for me, a lot of the terminology that I would have called a lot of what I call cybersecurity skills now, which is whether it's social engineering or whether it's sort of hacking, to me was always a bit of problem solving and a bit of blagging. So it was just basically turning those problem solving skills and actually putting it into language that I could understand, and realized I actually had a bit of a niche for this.
Right, and so looking sort of at the information security world, like as more and more people have more and more connected devices, surely it's becoming more of a problem, right? But and I suppose like my question is why are enterprises so incredibly concerned with information security, but we as humans aren't? Like, I think my dad uses the same password for everything.
Yeah, so businesses obviously are quite scared by it because of the amount of data they hold and the risk that it puts that organization at. So whether that's risk to losing IP, whether it's risk to losing data and subsequently getting a fine. There's a lot more legislation around organizations, GDPR, that means actually it's going to hurt. If I get fined or if I lose data, it's going to hurt me. And people generally don't have the same perception. I think going back to what I was saying earlier is that cybersecurity, a lot of people don't actually understand what the terminology means and what it actually means. And we were talking about, okay, what do you have, what do you contain that potentially could be at risk of loss over digital devices or digital means? And when you simplify it and you talk about, okay, why does your dad use the same password? He uses it because actually he wants to gain access to information that he deems to be quite valuable. What he's not realizing is by having a simplified password and reusing the same password, he's really, really making himself vulnerable. And the problem is people didn't teach us. When you get a computer, nobody sits down and tells you what you should and shouldn't be doing on that computer, on that device that potentially is a really dangerous weapon. And what it should come with is a little bit of a, going back to sort of the olden days, a bit of a driving license of before you engage with it, you should really know what the risks are of okay, what are the benefits and what are the, how's it going to make your life smarter, faster, better and more enriched, but what are the risks? I suppose a bit like in a medicine box and you have your, okay, what are the side effects? I think that's kind of what people should potentially have, and tools on how to engage it. And the problem is people aren't told those simple, what I would class simple tools in order to protect your information, like creating a strong password. When they're first given a device, people kind of find it for themselves, and that's the problem.
So how, do you get really annoyed when you come across people whose password is like password or password one?
No, I never get annoyed. It's just, again, sitting down and explaining to them, well, why do they do it? And the general rule is people don't do it because they don't know any different, okay? Right. So until you explain to somebody, well, actually, there's no need for you to have really simplistic passwords. I've got, I think it's about over 290-odd passwords. There's not a possibility I could remember all those, so I use a password manager. So getting people to understand the benefits of a password manager is really quite simple once you get into the habit of doing it. Same with two-factor. You put in two-factor authentication in because it's that second step. If you liken that to when you leave the house, you put your alarm on and you lock the door, it's just two means that if you lose your key, somebody still can't get in.
Right.
When you explain it to people like that, it's quite simple terms, and it's just basically more and more people adopting good habits, and hopefully everybody will follow suit.
Yeah, and in some ways, like why isn't it? Why aren't those things drawn made why aren't those two things compared more frequently, right? Like
I think one is because we don't concentrate enough on the human side. We try and find technological solutions to fix everything, and the problem is people can't be patched and monitored. And I think there's a little bit of, we're all a little bit different, we're all a little bit quirky, so we have to adapt our solution around that. And that's one of the things sort of we're concentrating from an awareness point of view, is how can you tailor messages to actually make them stick for people. But it's very much about enforcing and encouraging good behaviours, and that generally doesn't sit with an IT team. That's potentially the responsibility of a wider organisation. Nobody's sort of adopted that element yet.
Right, and I guess the final one for me really is how vulnerable are businesses to cyber attack? Like how prevalent is this?
Massively, because as I pointed out earlier, sort of people are responsible for 90% of breaches, and whenever you've got people in the organisation, until we can fully autonomize everything and put robots in everybody's places, there will always be that element of people are still the root in, because generally we are a weak link, because we want to trust and we want to kind of engage with people, and our lives become richer for doing that. And unfortunately, that means that people that want to exploit that and take advantage of it can do really, really easily. So every business, if an organisation is determined enough, can be hacked.
Right, and if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do it?
Yeah, so if anybody wants to get in touch with me, it's Melanie Oldham on LinkedIn or through the company website, which is bobsbusiness.co.uk.
Great, thank you very much. Absolute
No problem.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.